husband and wife behind the mass shooting in San Bernardino began erasing their digital footprint the day before the deadly attack, deleting email accounts, disposing of hard drives, and smashing their cell phones, according to law enforcement officers who are treating the mass murder as a counterterrorism case. Even though America suffered a devastating terror attack that killed 14 and wounded another 21 on Wednesday, President Obama told CBS News on Thursday,
ISIL is not going to pose an existential threat to us. They are a dangerous organization like al-Qaeda was, but we have hardened our defenses. The American people should feel confident that we're going to be able to defend ourselves and make sure that we have a good holiday season and go about our lives.
Perhaps even more shocking is the fact that it was allegedly the female terror suspect who radicalized her husband. According to CNN's Jim Sciutto,
investigators now believe that there's a connection to ISIS in the San Bernardino shooting. They have found a connection to ISIS. That is that the female attacker, the wife, Tashfeen Malik, posted on Facebook pledging allegiance to the ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. These are three officials telling CNN, three officials familiar with the investigation. The posting by Malik was made on an account, we are told, with a different name, one U.S. official telling CNN.
As the investigation continues, Americans need to be extremely vigilant and remember that if they see something, to say something.
And Kimberly Dvorak is here to discuss the latest on this, and we have been talking about this just last week. We mentioned this phrase here, if you see something, say something. In this case, it may have made a difference.
Absolutely. The last 3 weeks we've been talking about it. We talked to law enforcement officials, and that's their best, defense on something like this is, depending on neighbors to say this. Several neighbors came out and said that they had actually witnessed some unusual activity, but they just didn't want to get involved. And whether their calls would have come of something or nothing, we won't know. In hindsight, obviously, it's 2020 in all cases, but it's important to remember, too, that the police departments, sheriff departments, FBI, they all have anonymous tip lines. So people should feel free to, even if they think it's something small, that small thing could actually help prevent something like this happening. And this was certainly a terrorist tragedy that we suffered in this country.
Right, and as we saw in your report there, the president earlier had come out and said, ISIS not posing an imminent threat to us. These terrorists were now linked to ISIS and being supporters of ISIS, not working for ISIS, but now we know they were supporting ISIS and what they pledged online. And there's just a way for us to be more vigilant, and again, if we do see something, say something.
Exactly, yeah. A lot of us, are out going to Christmas parades, Christmas parties, and events, and we don't want to feel like we've had to change our lifestyle, but we just need to maybe pay a little bit more attention to what is going on around us, rather than, just focusing in on it and having fun. And just having, observing everything around you is always a good idea.
I know you and I both went to December nights, and we had that conversation.
Yes.
You kind of think, like, it's a big crowd, what if something happened here?
Exactly. But we can't go on. This is what the terrorists want. They want the United States to be bankrupt, which we're fairly close to that right now with the debt we have. And they want to change the way we live. And that's kind of another, precursor to what, Osama bin Laden, his dream was. We want to change the way Americans live their lives. As we're seeing the terrorism attacks intensify this year, we are seeing that is actually happening. It's also an important point to keep out here, to keep in mind that the most likely perpetrator of this was the female, the female. She came over from Saudi Arabia. She went to Wahhabist schools in Saudi Arabia, and it was most likely she was the one that did the marked her husband and came here and instigated this. And terrorists, and from what I'm talking to with my counterterrorism officials, they're telling me that this is something that terrorists want the United States to know, that they can come through the front door, because she came in on a K-1 visa, that we can come in the front door, the back door, that you're not safe anywhere, and that they expect, and the terrorists really want it to establish this caliphate, and they want to nation build across the world. And until we start looking at it and addressing the issue for what it is, and it is terrorism, we're going to continue to see things like this. But I
Kimberly
encourage
Dvorak.
everybody to please say something. Just it makes a difference.
All right, thanks for being with us. And for more on Kimberly Dvorak's full reports, just go